Hi everybody, it's Richard here again and welcome to another video. This time I'm going to jump on a suggestion made by Rob Walker to go through the letters of the alphabet and pick my favourite artist or band from each of those letters from A to Z. Now this was a thread that was started up by Jeff at calicosilver about 10 months ago, so I'm a little bit late in jumping on the actual thread. But Rob made a suggestion, was it the other night, saying I should do it. He did his way back in June, so I thought, well, I'll have a go at this. I don't know why I never did it in the first place, but there must have been a reason. I just probably didn't have the time. But anyway, I thought I would have a go at this now. Now this is actually quite difficult because some letters have got so many great artists and I just don't feel good about leaving them out. But I'll make a little mention to some of them as well, especially the letters S, R and T have got great artists. But we'll start with the letter A, and I think this is the best pure pop band ever to grace this planet. And I say pure pop, and that's ABBA. So this is Voulez-Vous from 1979. ABBA had 9 UK #1 hit singles in the UK. What they also had was, I think it was 8 or 9 #1 albums as well. So they weren't just a singles band. All their albums from Arrival upwards got to #1, plus 4 greatest hits. So that's Arrival, the album, this Voulez-Vous. So 9 #1 albums. So ABBA is my choice for A. Choice for B, and just goes without saying, David Bowie, and this is Changes Bowie, the 1990 compilation. This is basically Changes 1 Bowie plus some extra songs from 1977 onwards up to 1984, so it's a very, very strong album. The only thing I don't like about this, it features the 1990 remix of Fame, which is dreadful, but Bowie, my all-time #1 favourite artist. C, and I'm going to give it to Elvis Costello, and this is 10 Bloody Marys and 10 How's Your Fathers, and this is really a 20-track compilation of B-sides and so forth. It also includes Radio, which was a single and featured on the US version of this year's model, but it was never on the UK version, so it got into this album. It's like a rarities type album, so I thought I'd show it. So that's Elvis Costello in my number, or for letter C. Letter D, and Bob Dylan, I'm going to have to give it to. He's just had so much brilliant stuff, especially the 60s and the 70s. I do like his 80s stuff, but it's not as good. And then from Time Out of Mind onwards, he did no wrong, apart from the covers albums. And I've heard the new song as well. Is it Murder Most Foul or something like that? And it's spellbinding. 16-17 minutes long, but if you just close your eyes and listen to it, it is excellent. So I wonder if that will ever be released on physical format, because I would pick it up. It's great. So Bob Dylan is D. Okay, now E, I was going to obviously put the Electric Light Orchestra. As you know, I did a ranking of their singles a few days back, but I decided not to because I had to include Jeff Lynne elsewhere, and I don't want to include him twice. And that was a big toss-up between the Everly Brothers, which I love, and this band, Echo and the Bunnymen, which I'm going to give it to because I really loved these guys in the 80s. I got all their albums from Crocodiles up to and including Echo and the Bunnymen from 87. I do have their CDs, or the majority of their CDs after that, but by that time they're getting very samey. Things like Siberia and I think it's Evergreen you call one. But yeah, a really good band from Liverpool. Ian McCulloch, the lead singer. This is their second album. It's not my favourite. It's up there. Porcupine would be my favourite, but I'll still give E to Echo and the Bunnymen. F, I'm going to give to Fleetwood Mac, and now there's 3 Fleetwood Macs really. There's the Buckingham next year's, which is my favourite. Then there's what I call the Bob Welsh years, which actually is my second favourite. And I know a lot of people think this is heresy, but my third favourite is actually the Peter Green years. I'm not a huge blues fan, which is probably the reason why it's my third favourite. But the album Then Play On, I think, is absolutely brilliant from the Peter Green era. The first two I'm not so keen on, but I'm a huge Lindsey Buckingham fan, and he is my #1 favourite guitarist, and he's a fantastic songwriter as well. So Fleetwood Mac gets my F. G, and I'm going to give it to Genesis. Yeah, this is Seconds Out, their live album, smack in the middle of the best period for Genesis for me, which is from A Trick of the Tail up to and including Abacab. It's just my favourite era. I do like the Peter Gabriel era as well, especially the album Selling England by the Pound. Foxtrot's pretty good too, as is The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, which I really do have to get in the mood for. But the last few albums like Genesis, Invisible Touch and We Can't Dance, I'm not overly keen on, and I just stay away from that. I can't even remember the name of the last one with your guy. I can't even remember his name either. Anyway, the one after Phil Collins left. So Genesis would get my G. H, and I'm going to give it to one of the most underrated songwriters, and that's Albert Hammond. This is his 99 Miles from LA album, and I think it is really, really good. He hasn't had that many solo albums, he's had about 7, but the amount of hit singles he has written for people is unbelievable. Things like The Air That I Breathe for the Hollies, even though they took it off his album, he did it for himself first. Starships, Nothing Gonna Stop Us Now. One Moment in Time for Whitney Houston. When You Tell Me That You Love Me, Diana Ross. Even to all the girls I loved before, Willie Nelson and Julio Iglesias, which actually features on this, and it's a fantastic version, amongst many others like Gimme Dat Ding for the Pipkins. So Albert Hammond gets my H. And I'm going to, this is where Jeff Lynne comes in again, and I'm going to give it to Idle Race. They only really had 2 albums with Jeff Lynne. They released a third one called Time Is, and it's rubbish without him after he left to join the Move. But the first 2 Idle Race albums are absolutely brilliant. It is psych pop. It is like a mixture of the Beatles and the Kinks. But one thing I will say is that it's very, very melodic. Both of these albums are really, really melodic. And it was a bit of a shock to actually listen to his Move material, which was lacking of melody, after hearing these Idle Race albums. This is their second album, and this is absolutely fantastic, as is their first. J, and Elton John, and this too is like a B-sides stroke rarities album from 1980, and this is Lady Samantha, and this has a few of the stray singles like Lady Samantha and Rock and Roll Madonna. It's also got Ho 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 Who'd Be a Turkey at Christmas, you know, the B-side of the Step Into Christmas album, as well as some fantastic singles like Into the Old Man's Shoes, Jack Rabbit, Whenever You're Ready We'll Go Steady Again, Skyline Pigeon, Screw You is a really good album, and this actually charted, I believe, in 1980 on the strength of B-sides. So Elton John is without a doubt my J pick, especially his 70s. I do like his 80s stuff as well, and I do quite like his 90s, but his 70s stuff up to and including A Single Man is untouchable. Excellent. K, and no surprise, and it's the Kinks, and this is a great compilation of the Face to Face album up to Percy. It's a double album, and there's about 40 odd songs on this. There's actually 44 songs on this, and this is a really strong compilation of their best era, which is from 66 up to about 70 or 71. So the Kinks, without a doubt, get my K vote. L, and I'm going to give it to Nick Lowe, which anyone that watches my channel knows I'm a huge Nick Lowe fan. This is a compilation as well from 1986. It's basically a follow-up to 16 All-Time Lows, but it's the next couple of albums, and he also throws in a nice B-side here, Basing Street, as well as another track from his Labour of Lust album, Dose of You. But yeah, cool cover as well. It's not essential, it's not an essential Nick Lowe album, but it's still nice to have. And give it to Paul McCartney, of course, and this is Unplugged. I've had this album from whenever it was first released. It was hard to get over here in Northern Ireland, but my brother was living in Liverpool, so he bought it for me and posted it over whenever this came out, I think around early 1991, and it's a numbered edition, and I have number 3764, which is low enough, but yeah, it's a good, decent album. It's I think the very first Unplugged album to have been released, but it's not the most famous one, that being probably Nirvana or even Eric Clapton or even Rod Stewart. So Paul McCartney gets my M. N, and I'm going to have to go with Gary Newman. I'm not a huge fan of Gary Newman, but it was a choice between Gary Newman and the New Seekers. So I would go for Gary Newman, and this is a really good album. This is Pleasure Principle, and this is the album with Cars on it, and Airline and Complex. Complex is a great song, big hit single as well. After about 1982-83, I'm just not interested in what he did. I wouldn't mind getting the Warriors album from '83, but I do have his albums all before that. There's a double album called Exhibition, which is great, and it just features those first 5 or 6 years. So the Beggar's Banquet years, basically. So Gary Newman gets my N. O, and I'm going to go with Mike Oldfield, and this is Islands, and this is his 1987 album, I believe. It's not his best album, but I do like the cover of it. It's typical of his 80s albums, where one side is instrumental, one long piece, although it's split into two here, but it's actually one long piece, and the second side is a bunch of songs. And you have people like Kevin Ayers singing, and Bonnie Tyler and his then girlfriend at the time, Anita Hegerland, singing The Time Has Come, which is a great song. I do love Mike Oldfield. I like his, probably his 70s stuff is the best, but I do have a soft spot for his 80s material as well. So O is Mike Oldfield. Roy Orbison was very close to getting in. P, I had to actually throw up a coin between Graham Parker and this band won. And I've seen these guys 3 times live, and they are brilliant, and all their albums are brilliant. This is Proclaimers. This is their only album of the 90s. It's their 3rd album, and it's got Let's Get Married on it, the magnificent These Arms of Mine, which I believe was written by, oh gosh, I can't remember his name. It was one of the soul singers anyway. And my personal favourite is What Makes You Cry. This is a really strong album. I was never that keen on this at the time. I always thought it was disappointing, but it really is gone up for me as a very good album, and it's called Hit the Highway. So that's the Proclaimers, get my P. That sounds a bit rude actually. Q, a no-brainer for me. Queen, This Is Live Killers, good double live album. So yeah, I've done videos on Queen, ranking their albums, ranking their singles. Love Queen to bits, so Queen, without a doubt, get Q. Next is R, and it has to be the Rolling Stones, and this is a compilation made in the shade of the album Sticky Fingers, Exile on Main Street, and Goat's Head Soup, and It's Only Rock and Roll, probably my favourite era of the Stones. It should have had Rocks Off on it. If it had a Rocks Off on it, it would be absolutely perfect, but still it's a good 10-track compilation from those albums. I love the Stones, especially really the Jimmy Miller years or the Mick Taylor years, more or less around the same time. So Rolling Stones. And by the way, as I say, I'm linking CalicoSilver, his channel. Check out his Rolling Stones reviews, they're absolutely brilliant. If you're going to do he actually did Goat's Head Soup, and it's the best review ever. So Rolling Stones for R. Now S is probably one of the most difficult ones. Like you have Slade, you have Sparks, you have Squeeze, so many. But hand on heart, I had to give it to Paul Simon. I got into Paul Simon in the very early 80s, 1981, and this includes Simon and Garfunkel. So this is a really good double album, the Ultimate Collection, which features both Paul Simon and Simon Garfunkel. I think Simon Garfunkel stuff is magnificent, and the majority of his solo stuff is magnificent, especially the 70s and the 80s. After that, you know, it's a bit hit and miss for me. But yeah, fantastic artist. Paul Simon gets my S. T and T-Rex, without a doubt. This is T-Rex in concert. I bought this on the week it came out in 1981. I thought it was awful, and it's still awful. It's just a very poor recording, but it charted. So it just showed that 4 years after Bolan's death, he was still able to make the charts. In fact, because he had more fans in 1981 than he had in 76 and 77. So T-Rex gets my letter T. Okay. U, and it was a choice between the Undertones and this group, and I have to be honest and go with UB40, especially their first 3 albums. This is their second, Present Arms. The first one is Signing Off, and the third one is UB44. And yeah, I do like Labour of Love, but after that they went a bit too poppy. But this is a magnificent album, really good reggae. So U for UB40. V and well, easy choice, Vampire Weekend. They've had 4 albums. I rave about them. They're brilliant. This is their debut, and it's nearly as good as the next 2. Not far off it. And the last one is probably the same standard as this one. So 4 excellent albums by an excellent band. W, and I wanted to pick the Wombles, but I decided not to, and I went with the Who, and this is Beaty Beaty Big and Bouncy, greatest hits from the early 70s, and this is really good. The Who singles are absolutely fantastic, so I thought I would show this, and this was my brother's copy which he gave to me a few years ago. So yeah, the Who for W. X, and no surprise, XTC. This is their debut album, White Music. This is the one with Radio's Emotion on it, which is a great song. A very good debut. It's not their best album, but I do like that cover. It's better than their second album, Go 2, which I also have, with the 12-inch Go Plus, which is not worth having. The Go Plus is not great. But yeah, XTC from 1978. Okay, the last 2, they get on the list because I can't think of anybody else, but I do like this group for Y, and that's Yazoo, and this is Upstairs at Eric's, and this is a fantastic album. Their second album, You and Me Both, which I also have, is very good as well, but not quite the same standard. Give me Yazoo over Depeche Mode any day. Vince Clarke obviously was part of Depeche Mode before he left and formed Yazoo, and then he went and did a single with Fergal Sharkey called Never Never as the Assembly, and then he became even more famous with Erasure. So now why Yazoo is a very good album. They're called Yaz over in America, which every time I hear that I think of Yaz and the Plastic Population, The Only Way Is Up. But yeah, Yazoo, good album. And Z, well, I have to give it to ZZ Top, and I don't have very much ZZ Top. I've got this and Afterburner, and this is better than Afterburner, but this is a really good album. For me, ZZ Top are Legs, Give Me All Your Lovin', Sharp Dressed Man, TV Dinners, and Got Me Under Pressure. Fantastic songs, fantastic album. I do like the videos, even though they're probably very politically incorrect now, but they're a bit of fun. So ZZ Top will get my Z because I can't think of anybody else. Okay, so that's my A to Z of my music collection. As I said, there's a lot of bands that I've had to leave out because they share the same letter. So that's me for now. I hope everybody's staying safe, and I hope to have another video quite soon. Okay, all the best now. Bye bye.